Welcome to the Orange Hammer Podcast. My name is Corbett Storick. I've been a licensed general contractor for 8+ years, specializing in new construction, renovation, furniture building. I'm the son of an architect and an interior designer, and I've been surrounded in this industry since birth, watching all aspects from concept, design, build, punch list, and of course, all the problems that come up in between. In my time in Durham, North Carolina, I've noticed a significant gap in knowledge between homeowners who need work and the people who do the work. On this podcast, I hope to break down the process of homeownership from the perspective of both the homeowner and the contractor in an effort to help raise the knowledge of homeowners about their homes and the construction/renovation process. I hope you enjoy. If you're enjoying the Orange Hammer Podcast, or if you have a topic that you want covered, or have recently done a project, please contact the Orange Hammer Podcast. The Orange Hammer Podcast is on Instagram and Facebook. Please like and subscribe, share on whatever platform you're enjoying your podcast on. Also, check out our YouTube channel, The Orange Hammer. The Orange Hammer Podcast is proud to be brought to you by CRS Contracting LLC for all your construction and handyman needs, new buildings to renovations, furniture building, EV charger install, or even a TV mounted. You can call me, Corbett Storick. It'd be my pleasure to help you. You can find me on Instagram at CRS Contracting. WSDG, the Walter Storick Design Group, specialists in architectural and acoustical consulting. Check out WSDG.com. And Taylor Bragg, for all your artistic needs in all mediums. You can find her on Instagram at brag_about_art. That's brag, BRGG, with 2 G's. She's the fantastic artist behind the Orange Hammer logo, and she did my fantastic table painting of my podcasting table. The Orange Hammer Podcast is proud to be brought to you by Stacy Sloan with Keller Williams Elite Realty, proudly serving the Durham and Triangle area for 25 years. Call Stacy at 919-972-1180. The Orange Hammer Podcast is proud to be brought to you by Rachel Z with Rachel Z Real Estate Team Realty. From the Triangle to the Triad, call Rachel Z at 919-323-6068. All right, everybody, welcome to episode 86. I can't believe we're even still here of the Orange Hammer Podcast. I got Corey Thornton with Rayner Realty. Did I say Thornton right?
Yep, you got it.
Okay, cool. So yeah, let's just dive in because you wear a lot of hats, man.
A lot of hats, a lot of different things going on all the time, all at once.
Yeah. So let's detail the different hats first. Yeah, just that. Okay. Any way you want. Yeah. So obviously Rayner Realty, there's something to do with real estate.
Correct.
Yeah. So are you a licensed realtor?
Yes.
Okay. So you can buy and sell and do all that good stuff. Do you do that regularly, or did you just get the license because it worked out with the other hats?
Yes. So starting out, I did a little bit more brokerage probably last year than we will this year. The goal's never been for me to make myself a top performing agent. The goal has always been to build a business that provides a continual income, whether I'm there or not. So any brokerage that we're generating, I'm just using that to feed the agents on our team. But I have to have a real estate license to own and operate property management company.
Okay. Just you pull that just a little bit closer. Yeah. Okay. So is Rayner Realty under like a bigger realty agent like EXP or one of those guys?
No, it's not. We stayed independent. When I purchased the company, it was independent. It was a small mom and pop kind of shop. They've been around since the 80s, had a great reputation, and then had kind of started dying by attrition, right? Owners were getting older. Agents were going other places. At one time, they did a lot of the business kind of in our area, and then when I came across them, it was down to one sweet 75-year-old lady at the desk, and that was it.
So you mentioned in your area, quote unquote. What's your area?
So at that time, that would be just Franklin County.
Okay.
But now, we've expanded and we're doing business, you drop a pin in that North Raleigh area, and everything within an hour's drive is where we go.
Oh, okay. So you're doing the triangle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Effectively. Yep.
Basically. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, if you're doing an hour from Raleigh, I mean, that's with no traffic, you'll get to Mebane.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
right up to it.
Yeah. So that's a lot of area and a lot of, just people in general. I mean, when you're including all of Raleigh, I'm assuming still Franklin County.
Yep. There's
a bunch of small towns in Franklin County that I can't even name because it's not my jam. And then Durham's right there.
Correct.
You roll out to Chapel Hill. I mean, there's too much work. Yeah. So, okay. So real estate, you mentioned how you just bought the company. So what were you doing? Well, I'm jumping too far ahead. Give me the other hats.
Yeah. If it'd be easier, I don't mind starting a little bit earlier because all the other hats kind of weave together. So
for sure.
So out of high school, let's go all the way back.
Yeah.
Right.
So when were you born? No. Was it fall?
I was. Yeah. No, but out of high school, went in 17 years old, went into the Marine Corps, got out of the Marine Corps in 2010. Not a great job market, but had the opportunity to go to work with a contracting company. And I ended up kind of just going heads down in that space for about 10 years. And
now, is this the contracting where, like, you murder people in other countries we can't talk about, or like building houses?
That's a very fair question.
Well, you said Marine, so like,
that's I've
seen enough action movies where, like, the contractors are the dudes that the CIA hire when they can't legally be there.
Yep.
Yeah.
So mechanical contracting, so HVAC, refrigeration.
Is that what they call it in Iraq? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
What'd you do in the Marines?
I was with engineers.
Okay.
So I drove heavy equipment and did engineer work, which means we build stuff and then we also blow it up again.
Right.
Those are the two jobs. So when we're stuck stateside somewhere, usually we're more building stuff, and then when we're overseas somewhere, we're either repairing something that's been blown up or wreaking havoc on something. I did a lot of route clearance work, which is pretty much just driving the streets looking for IEDs so that other people can use the streets.
But I mean, even though you're not like the dude who kicks the door, you still like walk around with an M4 and a flak jacket and all that. Like
Oh,
you
absolutely.
look like a regular Marine.
Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
No, not a.
Like, it's not like you're a construction worker in BDUs or whatever they're called.
No, and traditional engineering type jobs, our mission when we were in Iraq at that point was route clearance and looking for IEDs and making sure those roads were safe. But that job description.
How does one look for isn't it just like it could be in a plastic bag on the side of the road, or it could be hidden in a tire? Like,
That's correct.
What's the training for scouting that? Or is it just like, oh, he's got a feeling, stop the van?
Yeah, it's a bunch of both.
Because I saw that in a movie with Miles Teller where he was like, I sat in the front Humvee in shotgun looking for IEDs, and then like he would just stop the convoy and they'd be like, what are we doing? He's like, he feels it. Yeah. He feels it. And then of course he'd save everybody.
So a lot of it is just a real acute attention to detail, right? And so a lot of the guys that I was with, they'd been on multiple deployments, and they had developed a kind of mind's eye of, we know this area, that house looks different than the last 3 times we went past. Did they put something in the mud on the wall type thing? So I'll hide them anywhere, right? Now, when I was there, it was, it wasn't nearly as intense as it was leading up to, I was there in 2009. It was much more intense in Afghanistan at that time than it was in Iraq. And so they was really, if we were finding things, they were smaller. They were hidden. You'd always in culverts under roads, or maybe they dig out a pothole in the road or put it in trash on the side of the road. They weren't quite as creative as they were at one point, where they were hiding them inside of, they'd put them inside of dead animals on the side of the road. They'd put them anywhere. So definitely, I didn't have a door kicking job. It was a pretty easy deployment compared to most people I know.
Fair enough.
But not a safe job by any means.
So as a Marine, do you rank the Marines as like the most badass motherfuckers, or do you like, yeah, I was one, but in fact it's these guys and we're number 3? Like, where do where's the rating? Like everybody shits on the Coast Guard and then the Air Force. Those are like the top two to shit on. I don't understand that. Planes are super cool.
Oh yeah. So I guess the Marine perspective on that is it all comes down to training. And
right. So wouldn't you go Navy SEALs above everybody?
Yeah. And so the better trained a organization is or a unit is, then they're just going to be better operators. So the reason that the Marine Corps is always kind of at the front, or has, whether it's true or not, put themselves in their own mind at the top of the list, is because we go through more training. If you're looking at your basic forces, the Marines are better trained as a basic force than every other branch. If you drill all the way into the individual units, like we've got incredible respect for Rangers, we've got incredible respect for some of the other infantry units throughout the other branches.
Army Rangers are pretty, like those guys, you don't want to mess with them.
Exactly, but it comes down to training. Now, where we really go out of our way to make people's life miserable is when we're talking about, okay, what's your basic soldier versus your basic Marine, right? Your guys who are at the bottom end of the totem pole in both their jobs, and we're going to go ahead and put the Marine at the top of that list.
Okay. So if I can kind of summarize what I think you just said is, like, if you take guys fresh out of the most basic, I mean, it is called basic training, right? The freshest guys, you'd pick a Marine. But when you're talking about multiple years of training to either be, a SEAL or whatever the top Marine guys are, or an Army Ranger, like all those guys are pretty much at a standard level of all in the same incredible, like you could just sub them out. Like they're all really good. Yeah. Once you've gone through all that specialized to really be one of those operators.
They're not interchangeable. They all have very unique jobs.
Okay.
According to the branch. And so your Navy SEALs, they have a unique mission set to them. Your tier 1 guys in like Delta Force, they're a league of all their own, right? Different mission set. Rangers have a different mission set. So your reconnaissance teams in the Marine Corps, they've got a different mission set. And so they're trained to do their job better than anybody else.
Okay.
And then you have this idea of kind of this joint force thing, right? Where you might have some, secret squirrels out somewhere doing something, out in the desert, but they might have an Air Force guy that's what do they call it, like a JTAC, right? Which is the guy who handles all of the communication between the Air Force and the guys on the ground to make sure that the bombs land in the right place. Got to have that guy.
He's the guy with the little laser.
Yeah, all those guys. So you've got that guy. You might have a sniper team. You might have all these other things, right? So they're really good at whatever their job is.
No.
I drove tractors.
Hey, man, you're really good at that, I bet.
we got by.
You're the best tractor driver America could produce.
Oh, yeah. We thought so, for sure.
Yep. Is it just like the worst environment to be over there? Like, is it just 1,000,000 degrees all year round? Like,
it's hot.
Because it's confusing for me, who's never been there and only watches military movies. Like I love every military movie. I'm a junkie for that kind of stuff. 13 Hours is one of my favorite ones. But like some movies, they're in like the mountains of Afghanistan and they're in like scarves and they're really cold and they're making fires. And then the other one, like Jarhead or whatever, he's like in the middle of the desert and they have to like have hydration hour because it's so hot. I'm like, is this really the same country? Or is it just like, is it seasonal, or is just the desert always the desert and the mountains are always the mountains? Like I have no frame of reference.
Yeah. So you get over to Iraq, and I've not been to Afghanistan. I was only in Iraq, but it's hot. I mean, it's just hot. But I think we would get cold at times over there. But I think what we were really feeling was the difference in temperature, where it would literally be, you would have on, your uniform, flak, Kevlar, your equipment. I mean, you could stack on anywhere between 50 and 80 pounds of gear pretty quickly that you're putting on you as extra thermal layers in a hot country, right?
Yeah. What's a standard issue rifle weigh? Like 7 pounds?
Yeah. In that ballpark.
Yeah. And then you've got like a Kevlar and grenades and 6 magazines and an MRE and a water pack and a Camelback and a radio probably, and then your helmet's got to be heavy as shit because that's bulletproof and that's got comms in it.
Yep. And all that.
Possibly a night vision if you're that guy. Like it adds real quick.
It adds up real quick. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you would have all that on during the day and it'd be, I mean, easily 120 to 130 degrees depending. And if you were on the blacktop, it was like you would leave footprints behind you of boots, right?
Like you're wearing all that with the rifle on your back on the tractor?
Like, oh, well, so that was my job. That was like what I was trained to do was operate heavy equipment as an engineer. But when you get downrange, you do whatever's needed. And so I operated equipment, maybe 20% of the time. And the rest of the time I was either helping do construction on, hey, this base had somebody get hit, like a mortar hit this part of this base. We need to go fix it. And so that was part of what we did. And then route clearance was, I would be in the rear truck running the radio for the guys and be like, hey, well, while we're going up, I'm running comms for the convoy pretty much. And so you just did whatever was needed.
Yeah.
I was trained as a Marine.
Jump in.
Yeah, I was trained as a Marine. I was trained as an engineer equipment operator. And then what you do when you actually get there all depends on what the need is. But if somebody needs to operate a piece of equipment, like, I'm going to be your guy, but that's not a 24/7 thing.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Yep.
But
So,
like whenever you're, I don't know what kind of equipment you said tractor, but then you said paving a road. Like if you're paving a road on a, big rolling wheel, whatever the big wheel thing, like, do you have that, like, is the gun next to you or do you just like leave it in the Humvee? Like,
oh no,
can you fit in the tractor seat with all that shit?
No, but you do.
But
right?
you do? Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
And so whatever it is, you don't leave the weapon anywhere.
Yeah, because I crawled in a Humvee outside of Comic-Con in Raleigh.
Yeah.
And it was a real one, like the National Guard was there. And I was like a picture of me popping out through the hole with the 50 cal. And I was just like, I can't fit now. And I don't have any gear. Like this is not me. Like they would not be able to put me in here. I can't crawl around. Like I can barely move. I'm 6'5", at that time, even heavier than now. But still, I was like, even if I was like real thin and in shape, like I'm too tall and then you're going to strap a fucking 60 pounds of whatever on me. Like I'm useless.
Yep.
I would be very useless.
And that's whenever you were in country for a little while, you'd pretty quickly see either the guys who just got there or the guys who never left base, because they would order anything cool that they saw online to attach to themselves. We called them, well, I probably shouldn't say what we called them, but but we were, because once you're that uncomfortable for that long, you're like, oh, I don't need anything except the essentials,
right,
and just make this as comfortable as possible. I don't want one more ounce to carry than I have to.
Yeah. So see, after 2 weeks, all the dudes with all the cool stuff, they're leaving it behind in their bunk. I don't need this fancy clip-on, whatever.
Yeah. And then after a couple months in, the guys who were still wearing it, you're like, it's because you haven't done anything yet.
Right. Yeah. You've just been chilling on patrol at the front gate of the base.
Yep. So enjoy your fancy stuff.
Yeah. Under a shaded umbrella. Yeah.
But you'd have all that and it'd be 120, 130. Like by 10, what was it? I used to be able to, by like 9:30 in the morning, you'd look and it was always about 110. It seemed like that was the clock. You could set your clock by the thermometer outside of where we worked, but it'd get up to 120, 130 pretty easily every single day. But at night, it might be 65, 70 degrees, and to feel that big of a temperature swing, at night, I was wearing a sweatshirt, I was wearing a hoodie, I was wearing something to stay warm. Like
how interesting.
I felt cold. Yeah. Yep.
Man, I was just in Egypt and I was just hot the whole time.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah. And it's like the cold time of the year, but like still we were, 90 degrees in that desert sun felt like 111.
Yep.
And then going inside the Great Pyramid, it is very hot. Like it is a sticky, humid sauna in there. And there's no way out other than the tunnel you crawled through to go in and out the same way. And it's like, oh my God, I got to get out of here immediately. Take the picture. Go. It was so hot. Oh my God. I came out, my shirt was a different color. It was just darker.
Oh yeah.
Sweat.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Okay. So before last part of my tangent, before we get back on track here, when you watch military movies, do you just cringe? Are they just the most inaccurate, worst thing ever where you're like, that dude would be so dead, or that's not how that happens, or we don't use that or whatever. Like, because I'm watching it just like, that is so badass. I want a grenade launcher on the bottom of my rifle. Like, I want to blow up an enemy truck that has a technical on top of it, but I do not want to get shot at by that technical. So it's very much just like, want to live vicariously through them. But does it just drive you up the wall?
I don't.
With the exception of Saving Private Ryan, which everyone says is like so accurate.
As accurate as it can be, yeah. I don't watch a lot of those movies.
Well, fair. Is that why?
I don't know. I as a kid I was drawn to it like everybody else, and then now it's like it's I don't need that. It's just one of those things. I'm okay. Like I said, I had super easy deployments, but I don't feel the need to watch an action movie that way. Yeah. Right. Now, when I do, I try not to be a ruiner. If there's things that like details that are out of place when we're watching it with everybody, I try to just enjoy it. Yeah. With the best of them, I enjoy anything historical. Definitely anything historical.
It must be nice though if you do see something and it's like really accurate. Because like I have no like frame of reference, but I know that when Chris Pratt did that Amazon show, The Terminal List, he trained with like real dudes for like years. And to me, he looks like an operator. He talks like an operator. He cleans his gun like an operator. But I have no idea. I'm just like, that looks pretty damn good. Like he moves as if I would want the highest trained people to move. And I think he plays a Navy SEAL in that particular show who has terminal cancer, hence the name. But obviously you can only train so much and not do the real thing and look like the real thing. It's like, you can practice in hockey all you want, but until you actually get in a real game at the right pace, it's not the same.
Right.
Yeah. So I would assume it's the same with military training. Yeah.
Yeah. You never know.
You never know. Yeah. Okay. So coming full circle back on top. So when you get out of the Marines at, was it 20, how old were you?
Yeah. Let's see. So got out pretty quick succession, got out of the Marine Corps, 25. Got married. Let's see, 21. Like I remember, yeah. So got out at 20, and then shortly thereafter turned 21.
That's a pretty short military career.
Yeah,
by comparison.
Yeah. Yep. So it was just like just short of 4 years is when I left. And so 4 years. But I went in at 17, so I got an early start. I know. I look at 17-year-olds now and I go, what in the world?
Do you have to get like my parents to sign on that because you're not 18?
Yeah, they pretty much sign away legal guardianship and you become government property at that point. Yeah, and they treat you just like that.
I bet they do.
Like you can literally get you could get in judicial trouble if you get too bad of a sunburn that keeps you from doing your job. It's like considered destruction of government property, right? So like it's down to that level where if they want to get nitpicky and you had a bad day and fell asleep, passed out on a beach and got a sunburn, they could charge you for it.
Or you're just pissed off the wrong superior officer who feels like riding your ass. He's like, well, let's see how the judicial board feels about that. You're going to be burning shit buckets like a jarhead.
Oh yeah. It's that kind of stuff. The amount of stuff that goes on like that. Like my granddad was in the Marine Corps and fought in Korea, and he was one of those cool old guys. Like he was as kind as he could be, but had just all the old man tattoos going up and down his arms, talked about the Marine Corps all the time, loved it, kept putting bumper stickers all over my grandma's car no matter how much she told him not to, said all sorts of terrible things about Jane Fonda, right? And like just every chance he got was, and I was like, man, this is how you identify why in the world you get out. He's like, it's just chicken crap, right? He's like, it's 95% of the time, it's the most miserable thing in the world. And he's like, and it's whether or not the 5% makes up for it, whether or not you stay in, which I found to be extremely accurate because it's most of the time it's very dumb.
Isn't it funny how it only took like 1 or 2 generations for the tattoo to completely change?
Oh yeah.
Like
zero stigma.
1 to 2 generations ago, tattoos were you were in the military, you were in a biker gang, or you were a criminal.
Yep.
Like, that's it. Nobody had a cool, fun tattoo. Nobody was like, yeah, let me get the A-team on my back. Like, no.
Yep.
And now we're not even 2 whole generations later, and it's like everybody, including myself, has a tattoo. I am not any of those things. I am a big teddy bear. Like, don't be fooled.
Right.
You know, my tattoos are about Marvel comics and scuba diving. Like,
Yep.
not a hard ass in any regard. But it's so interesting how quickly it changed.
And now your barista has a face tattoo, right?
Right. Oh yeah, yeah. Now your barista has a face tattoo and like gauges and something through their nose, and they're still like the nicest person ever. And
Sure.
it's confusing. To me, it's confusing because like I don't want to just like judge people by looks, but that look is confusing when you're also really nice. I'm like, wait a minute, you should be scaring me, but I want this coffee. It's confusing.
I have a box for this.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you do not fit it. Yeah. Which says more about me than really anyone else. Like my boxes should be bigger and more inclusive probably or whatever. But, you know, we all work on that every day.
Yep.
Okay, so you get out, you get married. What's the first like company thing that you kind of jump into?
So the company I joined and started working with, I was pretty determined to change whatever was around me, right? So, and the owner of that company didn't necessarily feel the need to stop me. So every time I saw a need, I just kind of stepped into it and kept so from a pretty young
What was
age.
the company?
It was a HVAC company and refrigeration company. So I mean, just it was a 2-person operation when we got there, 2-3-person operation when we got there, and then I joined in and as we were growing, you know, and I'd say, hey, we need some sort of a service manager or something. I'm just going to take that role until somebody tells me I can't do it anymore, and then we just kept doing that until, you know, we grew the business, and I ended up running that company or a large portion of it for about 10 years. And while we were there, had the opportunity to start investing in real estate a little bit. Had some another small business that we started, kind of built and sold. We had an events venue that we built up and were able to grow into something that was purchased by another hospitality company locally. And then, and one day it got to the point where just I was physically in bad shape. I did not have a relationship with my kids. I mean, I loved them. They loved me, but it was one of those things. I saw them so infrequently during the week that like they wouldn't just come up and sit in my lap, right? They just didn't crawl up, and they didn't have this level of familiarity with me where they felt comfortable just being with me, just hanging out with me. And I was like, we've got to make some changes, and it doesn't matter what it takes. We've got to make some changes. And so stepped away from the company that I was running at the time with really no next steps. I just knew we had to make some drastic changes. And so through that process and a long process of trying to figure out what we wanted to do, we tried a bunch of different things that fell apart, and eventually we landed on, okay, we're gonna lean into real estate. We had a couple of things that we had to solve for. It's like I do not want to run a business where my family cannot be involved, and I've got little girls at home. It's like, so automatically the career that I spent or started as a mechanical contractor, that goes out the window, because nobody's going to let a bunch of little girls into mechanical rooms and electrical rooms and on rooftops. And
why ever not? Yeah.
What
were the 2 or 3 ones that you said you tried and really failed?
Yeah, so it was a series of conversations that wouldn't go anywhere. And so, I mean, the biggest one is we had put together a team. It was a gentleman in Raleigh, a general contractor friend of mine and myself, and the 3 of us essentially were going to try and buy off-market properties in the area at scale. And this isn't that long ago. This would have been like 2020, right? And we were going to build a large enough portfolio to where hopefully in about 7 years we could sell it off into a REIT, real estate investment trust, and walk away and all at that point do whatever the heck we wanted. And so I knew that, you know, to make a drastic change that I wanted for my family, it was going to mean some sacrifice, and it was going to mean doing something drastic, right? It was going to require some risk. It was going to require some big changes. So we sold everything we had to start this business. And right down to the home that we were living in. I finished renovating that. We had sold that, got that on the market, and moved further out where we could pull a bunch of equity. We were talking about, we sold a rental property we had, anything that we could push liquid. We pretty much went completely in cash. And the month we were supposed to really get it off the ground and fund the partnership, and we did that to try and get as much equity as we could out of the deal, was March 2020. And
of course it was.
And so that was probably the biggest wall that we ran slam into. And so now I'm sitting here like, okay, I don't have a job. I just had everything is in cash right now, and literally, stock market's crashing, home values are crashing, like the world is on fire, and I thankfully was in a position to kind of think things through, and while everybody had a little bit of a reverse instinct than a lot of folks, where everybody was a little bit scared to make a decision, and I was really hated that we had put everything into our savings account essentially, and it wasn't somewhere safe, or to me safe. And so we said, okay, I don't know what we're going to do long term, but right now in this minute, we're going to try and kind of stick with the same plan, but I want all this back in real estate as fast as possible. And so we started looking for really bad tenants and really kind of rough properties in good locations, and trying to find off-market properties in decent locations, and buying those up. And I had time.
What do you just like shoot the owner a letter?
I didn't. I had no idea what a wholesaler was. I didn't know those people existed. I didn't know that what I was doing was something that people made a career out of. I didn't know. Honestly, I would go hang out in coffee shops and bug everybody who walked in there, telling everybody what I was doing and trying to build relationships in different communities. I would meet with town managers and be like, hey, who is the biggest slumlord in town, and will you give me their cell phone number, and I'll try and clean up their properties. And just anything I could think of to get in front of people who I thought might have real estate to sell, or have connections to somebody. And eventually that started leading to some phone calls. Hey, I've got 2 rental houses that I don't want to mess with anymore. Would you be interested in looking at them? And so it was just sheer volume of activity of meeting people that eventually led to some traction. I didn't realize, you could put together targeted mailing lists. I didn't realize like there's an easier way.
I have a friend, Justin Ligon, who was on the podcast, I don't know, 50, 60 episodes ago, but he was actually the first person who hired me when I got down here. He was like, he bought a house, he was flipping it, and he was literally like, I need somebody to rehang these doors that were just painted and put in doorknobs. And I was like, okay, sure. And I did that in like an hour and a half. And he was like, you're too fast. We work slower in the South. And I was like, you pay me by the hour. Do you want to give me the 2 hours worth of money, or do you want me to twiddle with my thumbs? Because I'll twiddle with my thumbs, but I assumed you just wanted it done and give me a check and I'll get out of your hair. And he was like, can you come back tomorrow and tile this backsplash? I was like, I've never done it before. If you show me, I'll figure it out. So he showed me how to tile, and then fast 6 months later, I'm hiring him to help me do something, and then I'm hiring him again to like pull permits for me. And then, now he runs an apartment building and works for he's like a manager for like a bigger construction company, but he still has his GC license. But he does one of those, or he did, I don't think he does anymore, but he did one of those mailing lists. And I never really, at least at the time, I was like, it sure seems like a real shot in the dark to just be throwing like 700 letters out in a particular circle in Durham, hoping that 12 people don't throw it away as junk mail. And then those 12 people want to sell their house. So it's like, you might get one. It just seemed like not the move for me. And then we eventually got approached by wholesalers. But the problem is none of the properties really needed any work. It was all just like
no value add.
Yeah, it was basically like if you want to exchange money for these bricks and then get the money slower every month, that's what you could do. And I was like, no, that's not really what we're doing. Like we're such a niche where we're buying a house and we are ripping out everything that's not holding it up.
Yep.
We're gutting it to the studs. And then when we build it back new, it's too beautiful to sell for the amount of money we want to make. So we just rent it while the other houses build up to match us.
Yep.
And it's happening. And it's, to be fair, there's been a combo of, the other houses have built up, but then also just all of the triangle has risen in value collectively as an entire group, as an entire 400 miles area. Everything's just gone up. So it's like, I honestly don't, to be like completely honest, I don't know if the neighborhoods came up to match where we want it to be, or just North Carolina came up. I'm not really sure what happened. But all of a sudden, all these houses that we have rented out could be now sold for way into the profit margin. And we're just like, well, we should just keep holding them because it's only going to go one direction. Like,
yeah, historically speaking, it's like, and I haven't looked at this recently, but it's the median price of a house has doubled every 15 years on average, I think, something along those lines, where which is kind of scary to think about the future when you're looking at that trajectory and that trend. And it's either 15 or 20 years, but let's say it's 20 years. So, I mean, that's still, if every 20 years the median value has doubled, then, we're looking 20 years from now and median house price is going to be what, in the, upper 800s, low 900s. It's like,
but what you're talking about happening in 20 years happened in 18 months because of the pandemic and the government trying to do everything they could to adjust whatever rates and situations. And, I don't know who's at fault, if anyone even is at fault. I think everybody's bitching about high interest rates only because they were so low. But I think if you look at historical trends, they should even be higher. We were just spoiled.
Yeah.
It's kind of like our gas prices. It's like, go to Europe and buy some gas. They pay $6 a gallon, and they have been for a really long time. You're just confused when you go there on vacation and it's in liters. But it's still very expensive. So it's like, we got spoiled with these 2.5, 3.5, even 4 interest rates. Now everyone's complaining at 6.9 and 7.1. But like, I think it, my parents were like, before you were born, it was 15% or, 12% or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I'm aware. I can look at the history, but people are very blind to the history sometimes. They get really upset.
There's a couple pieces of that conversation though. You've got interest rates, which is a key piece of the conversation, and how that plays into house value and what the market's doing. But you can look back to, everybody's been talking about when the Fed chair was a guy named Paul Volcker, right? And he's like, oh, he ran interest rates all the way up to 18%. And I was getting a house financed at a credit card payment rate type thing to me. And like, okay, that's a point of comparison. That house you were buying was also only $70,000.
Right. Now it's $700,000.
And now it's right. Now that house, fast forward to now, is at least mid 300s, and then we're talking about, so historically the average interest rate is somewhere in the mid 7s. But historically the median house price is not somewhere in the 400s.
Yeah.
And so there is a big difference there at the same time.
And do you I mean, your best guess, obviously you're not, the person trained to answer this question like under oath, but like, what's your best guess on why houses just astronomically changed price? I mean, I know 2x4s went up during COVID, but they didn't go up that much and they went back down. So like what happened?
Yep. And so that's one of those things where this could get argued for a long time, and nobody actually knows probably the exact reason.
We don't have a real answer. We're just speculating.
But what you have is a supply-demand imbalance, and that's just basic economics. Is if there's, and I tell my kids this, I was like, if I go get if diamonds were as readily available as sand, would you want a diamond? Probably not.
Yeah.
But if it was scarce and there wasn't a lot of it, like diamonds are today, and they can be, there's a use to it and there's something desirable about it, then I mean, they can get pretty darn expensive.
I have no way to confirm this, but I heard that the like top 3 diamond manufacturer, I think De Beers is one of them, or whatever.
Yep.
Tiffany's, whatever.
Yep.
That they actually have infinitely more diamonds than they let us know in a safe, just so that they can control how little it trickles to keep the supply and demand super high.
Yeah.
Or the demand super high by
control
controlling the supply and controlling the price. But in reality, like they have sand. You know what I mean? And it's just we're all being tricked. I never understood it. Like I get that they're rare, and I still am like, there are way more beautiful stones. Why do we all want diamonds? Like I've asked a lot of women too, and they can't give me an answer. I've never been able to get an answer.
Good marketing. Yeah.
But I mean, like, have you ever looked at the 100 other beautiful, colored, amazing, rare stones? Like whatever the birthstones, the gemstones, the emeralds, the rubies, whatever. Like there are some gorgeous rocks out there, and we're all worried. I want the clear one. Why?
I
don't get it. I don't get it.
Status. I don't know.
I get it's got the only thing I can think
marketing.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
So, but back to that, everybody's thinks about supply and demand in terms of housing, but that doesn't in terms of how many houses are there, how many places are there for people to live. If you zoom further out of that conversation, go, the price of everything's gone up, not just housing.
Yeah,
so
the cost of living just goes up every year.
What is it where's the supply-demand imbalance? And what we had, especially the last couple of years, where everything went through the roof, is, there was a manufacturing of currency units, dollars, right? Now you have an oversupply of dollars, which should be tied to like a good or a service, right? Dollars should be made to support goods and services, but now we've, in very few years, like would they create like $9 trillion was something insane like that.
Yeah.
And now
we threw $6 billion at Ukraine like we were giving away a stack of pennies.
Right. But I mean, mid-pandemic when everything was shut down and they were handing out money, and I'm not arguing whether this should or should not have happened, but you ended up in a scenario where everybody had a lot of dollars, but the number of goods and services available were limited, very limited. And so now you had an oversupply of currency chasing a very limited and even, stopped supply of goods and services, which means...
But that didn't affect the housing market here. The housing market went insane while everything you're talking about happened, when, obviously primary hurt would be restaurants. They just got destroyed with their mandates and those who couldn't even go to takeout. I know in California, they just got slammed with insane rules. Like you couldn't even sit outside. They were banning the beach, like all kinds of insane stuff.
Right.
But the restaurant guys, I mean, that's terrible. If you made it through, awesome.
Yep.
And like good for you guys. But like that was really brutal. But the real estate world was seemingly unaffected. Because I was watching my realtor just be like, I've never been busier. We've been deemed essential. People want to move out of a city into this area. And this house that should be $280 is in a bidding war at $375. And I don't know even what to do. And it wasn't till the pandemic really kind of tailed off that frenzy ended. And everyone was like, oh, we don't have any more houses. We've got to build more inventory. There was just no inventory. And even now we sit here, was it 2023 and it's November? It's basically Thanksgiving and nobody can build fast enough.
Yeah. And so back to the whole supply demand thing is you look at the population of North Carolina in that same time period, and we have grown by over, it's like a net 250,000 people that have been dropped into our state in that same time period. And so again, now you've got an oversupply of people looking at a very already limited supply of houses, and they're all chasing the same thing. And so whether, all pricing comes back to that and figuring out, what happened, why is that price going up? Is there an increase in demand? Is there a decrease in supply? Trying to figure out why are these things happening? Well, if you look at that 250,000 people that dropped into our state, we've got 100 counties, and you can pull up demographic maps and look and pretty quickly go, oh, those people landed in maybe 20 counties. And
Yeah,
you can account
the bigger cities for sure.
And everything adjacent to Wake County, which is where Raleigh is, everything adjacent to Mecklenburg County, which
Durham
is Charlotte,
County.
right? And then you get a little bit of the coastline. And you pretty quickly get to 20 counties that absorbed over 250,000 people in like a 2-year stretch.
And people wonder why our infrastructure is garbage.
Yeah, they wonder why we've got.
It's clearly not a money problem because we shat out all this money as a country. Like if somebody flipped a switch and $9 trillion bajillion dollars showed up, but yet we can't fix the pothole around the corner.
Yep.
Like what is going on?
Yep.
Like I don't, I shouldn't we take care of our own stuff first?
Oh, I agree with that.
There's so many things going on that should be fixed. Like and this is like we're like white privileged people and we are aware of it, but like I don't know, go to inner city Chicago, like there's some stuff that needs to be fixed.
Oh yeah, now you're getting into policy and you're getting into all sorts.
I don't
want to
get into that. Yeah.
But there's a reason for Chicago's story and there's a reason for Raleigh's story. Right?
Okay, go pick apart a Raleigh. There should be some stuff fixed. Pick apart a Durham.
Yeah.
There should be some stuff fixed. Like I don't follow towns that I don't live in. Let's be honest. I don't know a lot of people that do. So like, I know what's going on in my hometown, this tiny town of Highland, New York, not Highland Falls, but where West Point is, but Highland, very small. There's a post office and a pizza place and a church. And I know what's going on in Durham. And I know that Durham, before I moved here, had a real problem, a serious problem. Everything in downtown is boarded up and filled with homeless people problem.
Yep.
And, a drug problem. I'm not sure of the drugs. I believe it was mostly crack. But anyway, Durham had a real issue, and it wasn't until that, like, the Durham City Council was like, okay, we're going to pump, like, 25, 30 million into the downtown. We're going to build a new Bulls ballpark. We're going to take those abandoned factories and make them into mixed use, like rent out the bottom, apartments up top, keep them to look like the factory look, make the people keep the Lucky Strike smokestack, like, and do those kinds of things. And it took a lot of money and a lot of time. And Durham came back. Like a lot of people, I'm not from here, as I stated, so I have only the frame of reference of like what I've been told, what my brother told me who moved here a couple years before me, and then what I physically have seen. I mean, we went to Gear Street Gardens, and we were watching them build that massive building right behind it.
Like adjacent to the patio.
Right, adjacent to the patio. And it sucks because Gear Street's days are numbered. Like, yep. I know. It sucks. They're going to have to relocate, and that'll be demoed real quick, and it'll be the entry office for that building. It's only a matter of time.
Probably so.
Yeah. I mean, the landlord could not, he's probably a good dude. I have no idea who he is, but you wave enough money at a good dude, he's going to sell that. And there's enough money now with all that's going on. But, my buddy Jeremy Stallings, shout out. Jeremy Stallings is a friend of the podcast and guest of the podcast. He told me when he was a kid, he's born and raised here, he would go to the old Durham Bulls ballpark and, like, the game ended and you left. You got out of that area as quickly as humanly possible. You did not hang out. It was not safe. If those giant lights were not on with giant crowds of people, you booked out of that area. And now it's like where we go to hang out.
Yep.
It's very confusing.
Yep.
But it took a lot of money and it took a lot of time. And unfortunately, the really only negative thing is they didn't actually get rid of any of the crime. They just pushed it out to the country. So it was all in one spot that everyone avoided. Now it's all in 40 tiny little pockets in every direction. And that has, we're going all over the place with this conversation, but that has led to a almost complete breakdown in the effectiveness of the Durham police force. And I'm like pro police. I've got family members who are cops, big fan. They do protect for the most part. There's 5% we see on the internet. They should be in jail, but for the most part, cops are actually needed and super cool.
Absolutely.
But their inability to combat what's going on, because now it's too spread out and it takes too long to like actually catch someone on video and build a case and do all this crap. And I remember the first house I was building, I just watched drug deals and prostitutes on the corner, 20 feet away. They would break into the house I was working on. They would steal my tools, steal my work lamp. I'd call the cops every time. And I'd be like, can you guys do something? Like, I'm paying the taxes. Can you guys, like, that dude, I saw him sell drugs. And they're like, well, it's your word against his. We can't do anything. I'm like, what if I go buy it on video? And they're like, no, then we'll arrest you. I was like, come on, man. Like, I don't want the drugs. I'll give them to you. You can incinerate them. But, like, can't you, like, there's 6 homeless dudes. Can you not give them trespassing tickets till they can't pay them and they go to jail? Like, is there nothing? They're just like, well, we can't really do anything. When we got here, they weren't on your property. They had left before we pulled up. So it's your word against theirs. And I'm like, dude, how is there no recourse as the, like, tax-paying, law-abiding person who's trying to fix a house and make a living? There was no help.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of that rolls up to then they are acting on whatever directives are given by and movements are being pushed by the city councils.
Right.
And so a lot of times, what they're focused on is what their bosses told them to focus on. And it's tough. And what kind of policing they engage in, they don't always have as much choice as they would like, the guys on the ground would like in those decisions.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of what you just talked about comes also with a financial backing. So, like, it's really hard. In fact, you make no money when you arrest that drug dealer. In fact, it costs money. The DA still gets paid to figure it out, and the court still has to do it, blah, 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 blah. Whereas, jackass cop number 4 makes a whole lot of money for the city or whatever when he writes speeding tickets, you know? And so, like, for me specifically, and I'm sure, don't get me wrong, I'm not unique. Everybody doesn't like getting pulled over for a speeding ticket. But when it happens to me in Durham, I get particularly upset because I just want to look at the cop and go, there's real crime 8 minutes away. Can you go do something real? Like, I'm not the dude. I'm not the criminal. Like my lawyer's going to get this off. And this was just a waste of everyone's time. Go arrest the drug dealers. Like, I know where they are because I own a house that they deal in front of. So, like, why? But it's exactly what you said. It's the city council. They look, unfortunately, at the police as a way to generate revenue with those tickets. And that should not be what it is. When you think of protect and serve, it's not really protect and serve. Really, their badge should say upholding the city council rules. Because that's really what it is. Like, they're not really protecting and serving the people. They're, like, protecting themselves and serving the government. So it's kind of a misleading situation. Yeah. But it's very tough. Like, there's no correct answer. I don't care.
There's not. And they've got an impossible and a thankless job. Like,
that's true.
They really do. They got a job where if they probably do as well of a job in policing and working in the community as they would like to do and as they would aspire to do, it probably cause them to lose their actual job.
Yeah, they also make no money.
Right.
Like, nobody gets into law enforcement like, this is where I make the millions.
Right.
No. It's so little. It doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
it's very confusing. Yeah. So. I have noticed that I get a lot more respect from cops since I got my CCW. That just changed every traffic interaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, because for those who don't know, it's a concealed carry weapons permit, so you can, like, have your handgun not visible, because otherwise legally it has to be visible for listeners who don't know. And so, like, I keep one hidden in my vehicle, but when you take the class, they're like, yo, you got to tell the officer.
Absolutely.
Like, it's actually a rule. And so when a cop pulls me over, the first thing I do, because I have a lot of tint, is I roll all 4 of them down.
Correct.
Because I don't know what side he's coming up.
Right.
And I want him to see the empty back seat or the dog.
Yep.
Right. And then I have my, like, thumbs on the steering wheel, but all my fingers are, like, aggressively out.
Yep.
And then I don't even have, like, my license pulled out. I'm like, hey, before I even get my wallet, which is in this pocket, and my registration's over there, like, before I move, my weapon's right here. I have a CC, blah, blah, blah. And, like, the last time, the cop was so cool. He was like, oh, yeah? What do you carry?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I carry a Glock 19. He's like, nice. And I was like, okay, I'm not getting a ticket today. Like, we're good. Yeah. And even my passengers, like, my girlfriend got really confused. We got pulled over. I was like, put your hands flat on the dash. She was like, what? I was like, put your hands flat on the dash and don't freaking move until the cop gives us the relax because he will in 5 seconds, because you get just a little bit of respect when you're like, not only am I not a criminal, but I'm letting you know I have a firearm. It is a legal firearm, and politely tell me how to proceed, and I will let you know and I'll do it. And you just get a little bit more respect, where like you might have gotten a ticket for 15 over. Now you get it for 5 over.
Yeah.
Or, you know.
And it's just, you got to understand to their perspective. And I'm not a cop. I'm assuming in terms of just trying to understand where they're coming from. Just, it's taking the mindset that I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate clearly that I am not trying to withhold or hide anything and be upfront. It's instead of having to make them go through the motions to figure that out on their own, for somebody who's literally walking up to a vehicle 100% in the dark every single time.
It's dangerous.
It's a dangerous job. And so a relief on their part of just knowing, okay, this person is going above and beyond. That's just as a sign of respect, and just not that they for once assumed that you were necessarily trying to withhold anything, but just disarming that's just how we can disarm that situation.
Yeah.
And make it easier on them to go, okay, this is not the traffic stop that keeps me from going home at night.
Yeah.
That's meaningful.
And I remember even my brother, when I was like, I don't know, 17 and just starting to drive or whatever, I was, as when you're the kid with the license in your friend group, you're now driving 5 people. Like, that's how it works. Yep. Cram in the parents' car. Let's go to the movies or whatever. And I remember my brother very specifically, it never had to happen. But my brother very specifically, he was like, hey, if you ever get pulled over and you're like with your group of friends, the best thing that you can do is take the keys and put them on the roof and have your friends all put their hands out the window on the roof of the car. And I was so confused. And he was like, that just shows the cop no one's got a weapon. The car's off because they see the keys. They know you're not about to floor it when he gets out of the car. And you're just going to get a different level of approach than, his hand's going to be like, oh, there's 5 people in here. What's going on? He's going to be ready to draw. Whereas all hands are on, okay, these teenagers are scared shitless,
right?
And that's the reaction I'd rather have from a cop as a teenager. I'd rather be like, oh, scared teens, not possible criminals.
Right.
Yeah. And I never had to do that with like all my friends, like, oh, hands on the roof, we're getting pulled over. But I never forgot that. And I tell it to everybody I know. I'm like, it's so much easier because I have friends who are purposely dicks to law enforcement. And then they tell me about all the bad interactions they've had. And I'm like, well, if you were polite from the second you started speaking to John Doe Law, I'm not saying you wouldn't have gotten the ticket, but it would have gone better. I know that for a fact. Like,
right.
You could start off as a human talking to a human. If you start there, but if you start off with you fucking pig, that's not going to go well. Especially like when he's a white dude and you're an Asian dude. My buddy happens to be Asian. I'm like, you unfortunately, like, you are Asian and it's knocking you a peg down when this white dude pulls you over. Like, unfortunately, that's the real world. So be aware of it and be nice. Like, it's,
and we're all trying to cross cultural boundaries, right?
Yeah.
Like, so you and I can chat all day about contracting because we know contracting, right? And that gives us a common point of interest. But me and let's say a microbiologist, like, I'd have a couple minutes of conversation and really start struggling to understand what they do. And so in those situations, like, you're having to cross a lot of room for misunderstanding.
Oh yeah.
And so whether it's whatever, anytime you have 2 nationalities and 2 different job descriptions, and we're all individuals with a very diverse background, man, the more you can de-risk that and just make it easy to be around, just don't be a jerk.
Yeah. Sometimes it really is that simple.
Yeah.
Like, especially when you're dealing with cops. I mean, even if you really haven't done that much wrong, it's still a high tense pressure situation if you get pulled over. Like, oh my God, like, it could just be a tail light. It could be like,
Yep.
A cop could literally pull you over and be like, hey, your left tail light's out. You need to get that fixed. Have a good day.
Yep.
Like, not even a written warning. That has happened. But if you're going to be a dick, he's going to write you a ticket because he's got the right to write you a ticket.
Yep.
But that's not really why he pulled you over. He pulled you over like, oh, that's an excuse to pull him over. Maybe it smells like weed. Maybe they've been drinking. Okay. None of those things are true. Have a good day. you know, again, 5% belong in jail. For the most part, I think cops are actually decent humans.
Necessary.
And necessary. Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah.
Yep.
I remember when I had cops like almost arrest my plumber because he didn't tell me he was at a job site at 10 o'clock at night. He was putting on like a pressure test, and the neighbor called me and was like, yo, they're breaking in. I see headlamps, flashlights. They're in the crawl space. I was like, oh shit. So I called the sheriff, and as the sheriff, I'm like, okay, yeah, nobody should be there. Go kill everybody. And then I'm with some friends, and one of them's a lawyer, and they're like, let's go. And I was like, oh shit, let me get my Glock. So I get my Glock and we ride over there. She's like, I'm a lawyer and I'm your witness. Let's go. And we get over there and I see the big white plumbing van, and I'm like, that looks like James's van.
Oh no.
And then I get out like Glock in hand, and I walk around the van and I see James pulling like ID out of his wallet with the state trooper. And I'm like, James, what the hell are you doing here, man? And he's like, I'm putting on the pressure test. And the cop looks up at me and he goes, he claims to be your plumber. I was like, yeah, he's my plumber. Do not arrest him. Like, everything's fine. Your response time is amazing. But he failed to tell me that he was going to be here. So I
10 o'clock at night.
At 10 o'clock at night. Yeah. Well, they moonlight for me. So that part wasn't weird. But normally he texts me like, hey, I'm putting on the thing tomorrow. Cool. You know the lockbox code. Have a ball. But yeah, I was really ready to shoot that dude. I was like, I'm not having this happen again. I've had a couple break-ins over the years, and it's tough.
Makes me mad.
It's frustrating.
Yep.
I've had crackheads break in and steal what my electrician told me was $7 worth of wire at the scrapyard. It cost me $450 to have him fix what was damaged.
Yep, that's the math.
Yeah, and I was hoping. I don't know why it would have made me feel better, but I was hoping that he would be like, oh, it was like $400 worth of shit that they stole. $7. That's how much it was worth at the scrapyard. And they just like chopped wires.
And it probably took
the staples.
Probably took them 2 hours to do it. And you're like, you just made, you had 2 hours to cut the wire out of my house. You probably had an hour getting it to the scrap. You worked 3 hours. You made $2 an hour. What are you doing?
Well, crackheads don't care.
I know.
Well, like crackhead math, you're a millionaire. Yeah. I mean, crackheads don't eat. They don't sleep. They don't use water. They just need oxygen, which is free, and the crack. So
it's crazy. So when I was stationed in Japan, I had this guy, I think his last name was Boyle, and so this was going like, I went in 2006, right? And so it didn't matter what your background was. It didn't matter like if you could tie your shoes. They were going to find a way to get you in because things were wide open in Iraq, wide open in Afghanistan, and they were doing everything they could to kind of get numbers up. So they were writing waivers for everything. So you got some real interesting characters that probably shouldn't have been in the military, put into the military that way. And this one kid was, he could not finish a sentence to save his life. You'd ask him a very simple question and be like, hey, did you take care of whatever cleaning duty that you had? And he'd stare at you blankly and be like, I did. I don't know. I couldn't find. He like just couldn't find the mop bucket. Can you just say couldn't find the mop bucket? It was like, and at some point I got extremely frustrated with him. I sat him down, and because I noticed that the dude would like on the weekends he'd pick up a guitar and like a virtuoso. This guy could play and sing, but when he could sing, it was amazing. Like he could play the guitar like nobody I've ever seen. And I sat down one day, I was like, man, what happened in your life that you are the best guitar player that I've probably ever seen, and you can't say the word mop bucket without it taking 30 seconds? And eventually what I got out of him was before he had joined the military, he had, I don't remember what his drug of choice was. I think it might have been crack. I don't know. Whatever. It was some extreme upper, right, where essentially he would be awake for like 3 days straight and play guitar the whole time and play and sing. And then he'd crash. And when he crashed hard enough, he would go sit on a street corner, play guitar until he made $20 and then repeat the cycle and just do it all over again. And so incredibly talented individual that probably never be able to use that. Like I'm pretty sure he got dishonorable. He got discharged and it wasn't honorable. I don't know if it was dishonorable, But
So
Yep.
there's dishonorable discharge, regular discharge, and honorable discharge.
yeah,
all
there's
three.
there's honorable. There's a bad conduct discharge. I would call it BCD, big chicken dinner, right? So if guys get assigned a big chicken dinner, it means they got kicked out, bad conduct discharge. You've got other than honorable and then dishonorable. And
What's
so
the
there's-
difference between bad conduct and dishonorable? Those kind of sound like the same thing.
Yeah, so I think I know dishonorable discharge is like stripped of any veterans' rights, usually. Like
Oh,
it's like big deal felony kind of, and you're not getting a GI Bill. VA's not paying for anything that you might have messed up. Like it's a big deal.
like they're sending your ass to Leavenworth.
It's big. Yeah. Like you're probably getting, on the way out the door, just to add insult to injury. They're probably going to strip you of your rank. They're probably going to, just and send you packing. And I mean, usually could be jail time involved. Could be. So it
Does that prevent you from joining other branches as well?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you really had to screw
It's
up.
like it's like a felony, right? It's like getting a felony. Whereas the other ones are like, yeah, you can't stay here, but it's some lesser charge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I assume like honorably discharged is like you lost an arm. We
No,
can't use you, so we got to honorably discharge you.
Yeah, honorably discharged. It could be. If you lost an arm, it's probably medically retired.
Okay.
Which is an honorable way to discharge. I would say a very honorable way to discharge,
for
right?
sure.
But I also have an honorable discharge, and I did not lose an arm. I just completed my term of service without getting a felony.
Oh, okay. So if you just woke up at the end of that 4 years and were like, I want to stay in, they would have happily let you stay in the Marines?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
They were actively trying to recruit you back in or get you to enlist again or do whatever, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So does that mean that you have like for the rest of your life VA benefits and like VA insurance and like all those super awesome, like, okay, I see your hand moving with the super awesome. But
Awesome is a very relative word.
fair enough.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
More than I can get.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, yeah, there's definitely, and I'll definitely say, I mean, the educational benefits and things like that.
Yeah.
I was able to, I went into the Marine Corps. I didn't go to college. I went in the Marine Corps when I was 17. And then when I got out, I had the ability to, lean into some more education. And it was, it was a good benefit for me. I didn't have to pay for any of the school that I ended up knocking out afterwards. So.
I mean, that's the least they could do for serving in the military is give you some free education.
It's like, we've really screwed you up badly. Maybe we can course correct with a few classes.
Do you get to keep the M4?
No. Do I potentially know some folks who did part swaps and have?
No, you don't have to answer
Yeah,
that. That's okay.
but-
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know the answer. but
Oh,
you don't
yeah,
have to-
yeah.
Somebody's listening.
Somebody's
Somebody
yeah,
on the
yeah.
other end of our iPhone is like, say it,
Yeah.
say it.
Give me a name.
Private who? Yeah. What's their dog tag number? Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's always things that go missing, but
Yeah.
but are still accounted for somehow.
Yeah. But you could buy a fully automatic weapon that a civilian can't.
No.
Because you're not
still
active.
have to. Nope. Active duty doesn't matter.
I thought active could go in and buy a.
It would sure makes sense because they're better trained than anybody else who's walking in there, most likely. You still have to have a license. Like, there's different firearm classification licenses, and if somebody active duty was trying to go get something fully automatic, they'd have to go by the exact same rule set as you or I would as a civilian and get a Class 3 firearms permit or whatever it might be.
I honestly didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't know that any civilian, short of owning a gun museum, could have anything full auto. I didn't think you could.
There you go. New bucket list item.
Yeah. Class 3.
I think it's a Class 3.
Are you aware of how you qualify for that?
I'm not.
Okay.
I know it's a longer process. The background checks, everything like that. I'd imagine we're key in that.
Yeah.
But
because the SBR or suppressor tax stamp is like a tremendous amount of work.
yeah,
And so I would assume it's way worse than that.
Yep.
SBR, for those who are listening or have no idea what we're talking about, stands for short barrel rifle. So if you want I think it's under 18 inches of length. Not shotguns don't apply, but if you want a rifle that's under 18 inches of length which really is only for operators in going around a hallway. Then you need a special SBR license, which is just like it's like a $500 tax stamp, and you have to keep that tax stamp with the rifle at all times. So if you like take that rifle in your car to the range without the stamp, it's technically a felony.
Is that well, if it's a felony, I was about to ask is that a federal thing or a state thing?
I believe that is a federal thing, and I believe that it's the same with suppressors, or more commonly known as silencers, which is not a real thing, but they're actually suppressors. But that's the same thing. Like the suppressor tax stamp has to be together.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know if somebody's going to like pull you over and be like, oh, here's your legal gun. Oh, here's your suppressor. Where's your tax stamp? Oh, handcuffs. But like, if you use that thing in home defense, you better have that tax stamp on file. You know what I mean?
Oh,
yeah. And like, I looked into suppressors at one point and then realized that was just such a toy that I would never use. I was like, I'm not murdering people in the dark, in the silent of night. Why do I need this?
Yeah.
Like, I'd have to get all my barrels like threaded, and I was like, this is turning into a whole thing just to say I've got one.
That's more scrutiny than I want.
Yeah, I just don't need this. I just don't need this. Like, I'm good. Yeah. So
your audience, I hope, is extremely diverse. Our conversation's been all over the place.
My audience is all over the place. Yeah, I mean, I kind of like that part about this style of podcast.
Sure.
I've been a guest on 2 different podcasts, and one was kind of the same thing. We jabbed for an hour and a half about who knows what. The other one was very much like, we have 44 minutes. We're going to talk about your cold plunge. We're going to talk about weight, health, nutrition. I don't want to talk about anything else. And I was like, okay, cool. And at like 42 minutes, he was like, with his watch, like, because the dude producing it was like, I've got a Zoom podcast in 6 minutes. We've got to end this.
Wow.
So it's a very, very different situation. I find them to be both equally as cool. But for me, this is a conversation that I might not have even had if I wasn't doing this. And so it really allows, for you to go anywhere. And then for people who are listening who don't know me, this is just an easier way to get to know your potential contractor, because, it's just going to be that much more familiar with me when I come redo your kitchen. And you'll just know there'll be that much more stuff to bond about. So
very cool.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a lot of guests be like, so are you going to send me questions? Blah, blah. I'm like, nope, ain't sending you shit. Do you want a coffee or a drink? What time of day do you want to show up? Like
right.
That's pretty much all I need to know. Like, I'll show you the bar or the coffee. Like, other than that, let's just turn on the mics and see what happens.
See where it goes.
Yeah. I think the crappiest podcast I had was with Natasha, my ex-girlfriend. Shout out, Natasha. You know that we're good friends, but it lasted 21 minutes and we were pulling teeth. So that was definitely like, okay, we have nothing left to talk about. Thanks for coming. Yep. Like, so that was definitely the worst one. But I've had one go like 3+ hours where we're just like, we looked at the clock. We were like, I think we've both got stuff to do. We should wrap this up.
Yeah.
So it's gone all over the place, but
that's how you know it's good, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm enjoying it. Right now, this doesn't cost me a damn thing. It's a lot of fun, and, one day it could become a big thing, but that would just be a super added benefit. I have no aspirations of dethroning, Rogan. I'm good. I'm good with where I am. I'm very happy. But yeah, okay, so coming back, even huge full circle here. Okay, so I still didn't get all your hats.
Yeah, so
we've gone all
I'll try
over the place.
and fast forward through some. So
or not, you can slow it back.
Started.
So you left off with
when everything hit the fan.
Everything hit the fan, and you wanted to take all your cash
and just get it back into
estate.
houses. Yep, get it back into real estate, however that looks like. And we knew a couple of things. Knew we weren't ever going to put ourselves in the position where we were going to work with somebody again or for somebody. That ship sailed, and we knew we wanted something that was super flexible in terms of, even if I was working a ton from an early age, I could go ahead and incorporate my kids in what we were doing. And so we just started heading down a ambiguous road looking for those boxes to be checked. And on that journey,
How old are your kids?
Oldest is 9, so 9, 7, 5, 2.5-ish.
So I don't know a lot of people, if any, that think of their career about how they could incorporate their kids. Like normally, and not to say that the normal is the correct way, this is just stereotypically, it's very separate on purpose.
Sure.
Like I go to my job, I get my money, I leave my job, don't call me about work, and I go home to my family and I do my family time. And no, I can't come in on the weekend. We're going out on the boat or we're going to grandma's house or whatever. And it's very, very separate. And you were like, it sounds like you were very adamant about that not being what you wanted to do. But how do you involve, 5 to 9-year-old humans in anything business related, short of like running a putt-putt?
Yeah.
Like, what are the steps of incorporating, or were you more just thinking about like a more longer term incorporation of like, okay, they could be a property manager when they're 19, or if they don't have college ambitions, they could renovate this apartment we're about to buy. Was that more of the thought?
No, I wanted them early in the business. And so growing up, I think I don't remember if you and I discussed this much. Growing up, had wonderful parents that are still together, still love each other, and are amazing grandparents. And just because of having those things, I have statistically, beat the odds, right? And that's a huge step up in life to have that, probably bigger than anything else. But growing up, we didn't have a lot, and how money was made, where wealth came from, how to make money work for you. I mean, that's not taught anywhere. And so
Not really.
You don't learn it in school growing up. Nobody teaches it to you. And I got out of the Marine Corps, started working on a W-2 job. While there, was going to school, nights, weekends, online. I knocked out up through an MBA and finished up an MBA, and they never taught you how to make money. MBA was fun, was a lot of fun, and it taught you a ton, and it gave you a lot of good things, but it didn't really teach you how to make money. I didn't really start understanding, how wealth is built until.
So glad I took pre-calc and not how to do taxes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Like, thank God I know how to solve for X and not do my frickin' taxes. Woo! So useful.
Absolutely. And so it's not taught. And so I was and I continually, once kind of the veil was pulled back for me, and I would go, oh, the world works differently and money functions very differently than I ever assumed or was ever taught. And the incentives, or the way that things structured, it's almost like that it's not even built to give you an opportunity to ask the question of where is it different. It just fills in the answer and wants everybody to kind of fall in behind it. It's like, if I knew now what I do, which I'm still a massive amount to learn, but if I knew it when I was 10, I was like, how would that have changed my life? I was like, that would have put me in a very different place right now. And so really fundamentally, part of that is going, okay, I might not ever reach some astronomical level of success, but I can be darn sure my kids know as much as I do at a very early age, and that's passed on at an early enough age where they're not sitting here at 20, 30, 40 years old going, why didn't anybody ever tell me? So if I've got the knowledge, my duty as a parent, my duty as just somebody in society, because this through our business, we try and educate people as much as possible. But what is it like to run a business? What is it like to, have an investment property? What is it like trying to figure all those things out? So, but on a day-to-day functional level, usually probably 2 days a week, I'll try and swing by the house, kind of mid to late morning, and I'll pick up one kid at a time. I don't take them all out all at once. That's chaos. But
dude, your whole life is chaos. Let's be super clear. You were giving me shit about my coffee maker, and then you immediately were like, it's because you don't have kids. It's like, hell yeah, it's because I don't have kids. Chaos.
But it doesn't matter what we're doing that day. The older 3 are allowed to go with me, and the youngest one is not. She's still a little feral to go to business meetings or whatever it might
Yeah.
be. And it doesn't matter what we're doing. I mean, I'd be comfortable bringing them here and they'd be part of the podcast or just see it happen. Or I've taken them to, I've a member of real estate group called TRIA. And if I'm doing a networking event till 10 o'clock at night, like they're just hanging out with me, networking or doing whatever. Or if we're in a crawl space this week, I went in a crawl space looking at a house with a client who's looking for investment properties. And, I'm up in that crawl space and was like, get your flashlight and get your butt under this house with me. And we're going to look at stuff.
Yeah.
And they're just going with me. They just tag along with me.
Throw on the Tyvek suit. Let's go.
Yeah. And so it doesn't matter really what we're doing. Just make them a part of it. And for me, I love it. It's a lot of fun. I love having that one-on-one time constantly. It might not be that we're doing, it's not reserved to, vacations only, right? It's I'm incorporating you into a meaningful part of our family and our life at a very early age, and also then setting from the expectation that you guys maybe you grow up and you desire to go do something different. I think that part of where our society has done a little bit of a disservice is it asks every kid to start from zero. And I was like, man, so what I mean by that is every kid from the time, what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I don't know. What do you want to be when you grow up? I don't know. Your granddad, your dad, your mom, whoever it might be, has a successful business maybe, and they're still asking you, where do you want to go start from zero at when you grow up? Because you could be entry level now, or you could be learning family business today, and you could stand on the shoulders of the work that was done before you, the shoulders of somebody who loves you and love to see you succeed in what they've already done, and would hand that off to you. But we continually go, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's like, I'm very open to my kids if they want to go to college, they want to go into some other field than what we're doing, but I'm also I'm equally as clear that they have a place in the family business. I'm going to teach them now what that looks like and make sure they know, no matter where they go, how to run a business, how to run numbers on a house, and figure out, is this a good investment? What it means to manage a property. Like, there's so many just relationship aspects in making both a tenant and a landlord happy with you, right? And navigating those things, and where those kinds of skills are going to help them wherever they go. I hope they choose to stay in the family business. It's going to be theirs to deal with one day, because when I die, one day it's going to be theirs to figure out. So whether they go sojourn somewhere else and build a career doing something else, I mean, they're going to be 18 years old and have more of a knowledge than I do now, probably.
I till you said it, I've never even thought to ask my parents if it was by design, but so my parents, they had a house, and then 100 yards away, what looked and felt and was operated like as the same property, it was in fact a separate property, and what looked like a 5-bedroom house was in fact an office. And 10 to 15 employees showed up every day at 8 a.m. and left at 5 or 6 or whatever. So that is on the road, and then the house is like up the hill, right? So the school bus drops us off every day at like 3:45 at the office. So we walk into the office every day at 3:45, and for the most part, we're chilling in the office. We are trying to sneakily play Quake with one of the draftsmen. We're looking at plans, don't even know what they are. I'm listening to my dad yell at somebody, or I was about to say, or say something good. That didn't really happen. He was mostly just yelling at people. I'm looking at my mom going through all of her color samples. I remember one point she got a whole new set of sample tiles from somebody, and she was like, I'm going to throw all these out. And I was like, give them to me. Where's the hot glue gun? And I made a huge structure out of these color sample things.
Yep.
But just continuously exposed. Granted, similar to you, they started themselves and ran their own business. Now they have a bunch of partners and they don't fully own it anymore. But as a kid, WSDG, Beth Walters and John Storick started Walter Storick Design Group. So that was them. So I would come home to mom and dad as top bosses of their own company with their massive offices. My mom's an interior designer, just sample books everywhere. And my dad's a licensed architect. And, they design recording studios. They're my number one sponsor. That's how I have dope equipment. So I never have asked them until you just detailed that you did it on purpose, if they did that on purpose. Because I found out years later that they very much wanted both my brother and I to take over the company. And both my brother and I were like not interested.
Yeah.
The reality, as I sit here now at 32, is I would have killed to take over that company. I just couldn't have worked exactly under my dad because, yeah, he's a good dad. He was always there. But like as a personality, he's an asshole.
Yeah.
Like Pop, if you're listening, I love you. Don't get it confused. But you're an asshole. Like it is true. And that, like from a working environment, would have led to us probably losing a non-working relationship, which there's nothing worse than that. And in fact, like we have partnered up on these 10 houses that we've all done in Durham together, and he's the architect on them. My mom's the interior designer and I'm the GC, and we've butted heads on those, and it's not even like a full-time thing. So I could only imagine like that being extrapolated with like my office next to his office and everything that goes wrong. Corbett, blah, 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 why didn't you think of this ahead of time? I'm like, yo, chill the F out. And I would have just like cursed him out in front of employees, and you can't do that. So the working with him probably would not have worked out, but like taking over that amazingly awesome, successful company that would have literally had me travel around the world on the company's dime, I look back with 5% regret. Like, okay, that would have been the move.
But not that investment that they were making in you, no matter if it was intentional or not, how much easier was it for you to be comfortable saying, I'd rather bet on myself than go get a paycheck somewhere?
It was not comfortable at all. I just knew I didn't want to. You know what it really was? If we're just going to have like full honest therapy hour, I didn't want no respect from the employees that have seen me in diapers, that have caught me smoking weed in the basement, that have drank beer with me at company parties. All of a sudden I'm just the boss's kid and you have to listen to me. They would have. But in my head, I don't know if it's true. But in my head, there would have been no respect.
Yep. And
so that was really where it was like, okay, I don't want to just be handed this. I'm going to try to go do something.
Yeah. So I understand completely what you're saying, but more what I was thinking is when you said, I want to go do something, like how much easier was it for you to say, I'm going to start a general contracting company and I'm going to make a run at this myself? And did it feel more achievable because you've seen a business run before?
I'm sure subconsciously. Consciously, no. Yeah. I'm sure subconsciously. Like I'm man enough to admit that there was probably a lot of subconscious stuff because Nancy, R.I.P., the CFO of my parents' company, literally knew me from birth till she passed away a year or two ago. And I watched her even, stand up to my dad and be like, you got to stop buying Yankee tickets on the company card or stuff like that. Like all kinds of, it's like, no, that was a company meeting. Bullshit, John, you took your son. Like, he could be a client. Like, we're talking, how's the sound here? Like we used to joke all the time. We'd go out to a restaurant, just the family, and my mom would be like, put it on the company card. And they'd be like, well, we didn't talk anything. And my dad would jokingly be like, Corb, how's the sound? And I'd be like, sounds pretty loud. I'd be like, okay, well, now it's company dinner.
Yep.
Because they're acoustical architects.
Yep.
So it's just like hilarious stuff like that. So subconsciously, I'm sure there was a huge thing. I remember telling somebody I didn't know how to read plans, and my mom was in earshot, and she was like, yes, you do. And I was like, no, I don't. She's like, yes, you do. You've been around plans since you literally were born. And I think she pulled up some plans on her laptop and she was like, what's that? And I was like, it's a left swing door. She's like, what's that? Oh, it's a right swing door. It's like, plans. Like, this says bedroom. And I was like, yeah, I guess you're right. Like, I just didn't think I did because I didn't do it every day. But I was around it enough. I have no excuse, but I don't know how to use AutoCAD, and I really should have picked that up, staring at Draftsman working all the time. So the fact that I didn't pick that up is really just on me. but I have a subcontractor for that.
That's
But
right.
Starting the GC was an interesting move. I was into working with my hands from as young as you could get. Pine box derby cars in the Scouts. We always had a wood shop because we just had a lot of land and a lot of sheds. Both my parents had power tools before they knew each other, so the collection just grew when they got together.
Yep.
And, there was always an extension being built on our house. And that always led to a scrap pile or just like, there's 4 extra 2x. Just put them in the back. We're not going to return them. So a year later, I'm chopping that thing up and I'm making a boat that's 8 inches long or something, So just always messing with power tools, building sets in high school, sets in college, for like drama, theater departments, all that kind of stuff. And then in California, I finished college in New York. I moved to California with nothing, no prospects of a job. I've got a couch to stay on. One night on the couch, it's too loud because my buddy and his roommates play music till 3 a.m. And I was like, cool, I'm going to pitch a tent in the backyard. Mm-hmm. So I did for 9 days until I found a place to rent. And I ended up getting a job being the 4th man on a 3-man crew, as my dad likes to say it. I was just the grunter. I was just shagging wood from where it got dropped off to where we need it and rolling up extension cords and all the demo and all this crap. And one thing led to another, and I'm now doing that like relatively full time. And then back in the days where you could just throw up an ad on Craigslist for free, I was just like, carpenter for hire, what do you need? And some old lady was like, I need a loft built in the shed for storage. And I was like, that's easy. 2x6s, plywood, couple of screws, like some bolts. Let's go. And then she was like, this is great. Can you build me a deck? And I built her a deck. And we're like screwing on the last board. And she's like, can you put a shed on the deck? And I was like, as long as you understand that this is kind of a floating deck and you didn't get a permit and there's no like real footers, but like, sure.
Yeah.
So I start framing this deck. I'm using screws instead of framing nails. I don't have a framing gun. I've got the 2x4s flat on the roof instead of so it's like sagging like crazy. It's bad. It's bad. It's bad.
Yeah.
Right. She hires some friend of hers who's a contractor to come look at it, and he's ripping it apart. And I walk in as they're talking, and I'm just like, hey man, don't stop ripping it apart. I'm here to learn. I'll fix whatever I have to fix for free. And he was like, well man, the way these walls are, they're gonna pull apart. And I was like, really? I put 3-inch decking screws. And he was like, oh, you did all this with screws? This is fine. Like, you're good. You just got to add some right-facing 2x4s with a ledger strip on each side for the roof. Otherwise, it's going to cave in. And I was like, I'll do that. No problem. I was like, lady, you got to buy 4 more 2x4s. I'll chop them. I'll throw them in. Like, don't even worry about it. And the rest is history, But if it wasn't for my parents, I wouldn't be a contractor. Because when I moved here, they bought the first house.
Got it rolling.
Yeah, they bought the house and they put up the money to refab it. And they did the design work and did all the plans. And, they were like, okay, so we're going to do this. And we did it, and it cost way too much money. It didn't cost way too much money. The neighborhood was too shitty.
Sure.
So all of a sudden we're like, well, we can't sell it. We would lose $60,000. So let's rent it. And then around the corner, there's another house for sale for $40,000. This is back when houses were $25,000, $40,000, $45,000. We bought a $60,000 house. We thought that was expensive. Now you can't find it. And they put up all that money, all that design, all the blueprints. They definitely mentally and emotionally helped me study for my contractor's license. And they even helped me negotiate certain contracts with certain subs. We had an issue with a roofer who wanted $3,500 extra, and we were like, why? And I was like, I don't really know how to handle this. And my dad was like, I'll be there in a week. Tell him to meet me on site. I was like, cool, I want to watch this. I watched the master at work, and all he does is negotiate deals all day long. It's a bigger scale, but it's the same thing. And so without any of that, I'm not a general contractor, or if I am, I'm not as successful as I am. So, I mean, it's not the direct shoulders that your kids will stand on if they take over your company, but it's pretty damn close to basically being, it's a shoulder and a half adjacent, you know what I mean? And very, very similar fields. And I grew up helping all the dudes who were building the extensions on our house. At 8 years old, I figured out I was ambidextrous, not because I was good with my left hand, just because my right hand hurt from all the hammering, and I just switched to my left hand, and I was still accurate. And the dude looked at me like, that's not normal. And I was like, I guess I'm the best. Like, I don't know. Yeah. But like this one dude, Fred, built like everything in the Highland house. I was like, oh, Fred's coming. Let's go. What are we doing?
Yeah.
We're building a pool. Let's build a pool. We built a pool out of cinder blocks one summer. We just did it.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's like a circle with an extender thing and a deck wrapped around it. And I was like, my dad never built a pool in his life. And he was like, I'll figure it out. Fiberglassed it and sprayed. It was ridiculous. Yeah. He just built a pool one day. It was like, I couldn't do that. Yeah. So just, we saw all kinds of stuff. The pool house that we call a gym has like glass corners where glass meets glass.
Oh yeah.
And like just because he's an architect, you want to do something cool. If there's a curved roof on it, like for no reason other than he was like, it's cool. I like curves. I was like, well, they're badass. Says yes. It's just like, yeah. But so yeah, I mean it's there was some subconscious there, but there was a lot of like direct influence for sure.
Yep.
So you buy and sell wholesale. You work with investors who want to buy and sell. You have properties that you manage where you're not the landlord. You're just the intermediary for the landlord and the tenant. Do you have properties where you are the landlord?
Yep. So
we're really doing everything.
At first you wear all the hats, and then you can't do everything, and you find really good people to partner with. Yeah. And so that's really the only reason we kind of got past the initial, let's just bootstrap and figure it out phase is we were very fortunate to find very good people and bring them around us, and they were willing to work alongside us, whether it was for us or bringing partnership with us. Extremely fortunate there. So we've organized a lot of that chaos into some large buckets where I can switch hats without it being all consuming. And if I have to take that hat off, there's somebody else to do that work besides me. And
I feel you, man. I mean, without my subs, I am just a dude with a license. Yeah. But my subs are so good, and I've got a backup for almost every trade. And it just, it is truly a team effort if you want to do construction.
Yep.
Even when you're maintaining a rental property, like it might be more handyman level, but you still need a good one. It still has to be done correctly because it's just going to break again. Then you're going to have to deal with it. Yeah. So, and then you do scrap, right?
So yeah, the full picture is we've got a private real estate office which focuses on property management and then working with investors to buy investment properties. And so that's kind of where we specialize. Everybody on our team is an investor. So it's kind of that investors helping other investors do what we enjoy, right?
Yeah. So you're not the realtor to just like a new home buyer just wants, not that you couldn't, but it's not your jam.
If somebody comes to us and asks for help, we help them, but we don't go pursue that work.
Yeah.
We don't do the dream home stuff.
Yeah. And your way of helping is here's a better realtor.
Well, I mean, we can handle that in-house. I mean, we'll do that. But if we're pursuing, whether it's marketing dollars or time spent or trying to get in front of people, we're really just looking for other investors.
Oh, okay.
And that's who we want to partner with.
So you're not going to advertise to that dream house person. But if they call you, you're happy to
and you
show them houses.
Correct. And just because of the way that we message ourselves, usually – it's friends, families, close connections, people in our network. It's not somebody who has found us and gone, they can find the dream house and call us. So that's usually how that shakes down. But through that, and then just the continued story of bringing in good people, we've got our own portfolio of houses that we have invested in, and that's led to some other businesses as well where had an opportunity to buy a small industrial property and brought in some partners around that idea and said, hey, this is a really good opportunity, we think, but we can't do it. And so, you're just problem solving. If we want to be a part of this and we can't do any of it really, then how do we get it done? And just put together a team that collectively we were able to purchase a metal recycling center. And so we've got a scrap yard, and then we also just in the last couple weeks, and this was right around the time I think you and I last met, opened up Rainer Maintenance Construction, which is another company kind of under the Rainer brand that is going to internalize and bring all of our maintenance and construction in-house. And so, right now, we've got an initial partner and maintenance team in place where we've brought kind of that routine stuff and working out that to have better control over how we respond to maintenance and the finished product, but also long term within the next couple months, hopefully next 3 to 6 months, we'll have an in-house GC as well to help kind of be a full service. So I guess
let me know when I can interview for that job.
Yeah. So right now we've got three different companies, I guess technically, that we're spinning, at least operating companies, between the maintenance and construction, Rainer Realty, which is property management and brokerage, and then the Lewisburg Recycling, which is a scrap metal business.
Yeah, I've been very lucky when it comes to maintenance that there just hasn't been a tremendous amount. But, I got to take that back. It's not really luck, because when I'm gutting the house and I'm building it at a certain level, I can make sure that the normal maintenance stuff doesn't happen by doing not much extra. Like the biggest thing that's going to break is beyond appliances that just die, and they die. And at this point, unfortunately, in the way that society has deemed plastic, it's cheaper to just buy a new dishwasher than to even get it fixed, unfortunately. But that's a different conversation that we could talk about never. But the next thing that's going to break is like the toilet paper holder is going to come off the wall, the shower hook, something like that, And it's because the drywall anchors that come with that are garbage. And so I either am bringing my own 75-pound test drywall anchors, or I've told my framer that there needs to be a block there.
Right.
Between the 2x4 studs before the sheetrock and insulation, and I know where it is, and that they're screwed into that with 3.5-inch deck screws. So you need a bulldozer to remove it. So those are, and I feel like I've said this a couple of times on this podcast, those are very, very cheap, simple things. And half the time, they're not even cheap. They're free. Because most of the time, that's scrap wood you'd actually have to pay to put in a dumpster, or get Caleb to freaking haul it for you.
That's right.
And who's been on the podcast, and big fan of Caleb. He works real hard. But like those scraps are there. They're sitting in a pile. So it's like you could just go grab one, chop it, throw 2 nails on each end or 2 screws on each end, and you'll never have to get rid of that hook or pay to throw that 2x4 away. Like at the end of the day, it actually just makes more sense. And then, there are other things along that line of just like, well, the standard might be, 2 of something. Let's put in a third one. Like it'll just be that much stronger, and it'll take that much longer for it to leak. And like we don't put fiberglass pans in the shower. We just refuse. We just don't do it. Like my tile guy just makes his own custom pans. And I've heard it argued every side, but I've seen the fiberglass pans crack and fail with my own eyes. And the worst thing I've seen happen to like a pan that my tile guy actually did was like one tile come loose, but the entire pan was still waterproof and completely pink and sealed. And we just had to remortar and regrout that one tile.
Yep. So
like of those 2 options, I'd take that one tile option, especially because he did it for free, because he was like, oh, it shouldn't happen. I was like, cool, go fix it. So it's like, the fiberglass pan, getting it out to even try to return it to Home Depot is impossible, because you got to demo almost the whole shower. So it's like, I don't know, little things like that. And then, we're really careful about the flooring we pick. We use flooring that is not residential. We use commercial grade office building flooring that needs to hold up to the wheels of office chairs, the immense heavy foot traffic of being in a commercial space, and therefore will hold up to pets, and therefore is waterproof. It's just like a glue down rubber plank kind of system. It's not
Oh, yeah.
tongue and groove, but
Yep.
it just, you lay it tight, you use 100-pound roller, and it's good to go. And what's super cool is if you really do gouge it, like one time a metal bed frame foot lost the rubber pad and really gouged it, you could just cut out that one piece and scrape up the glue and put in some new glue and press in a new piece. Like you don't have to rip up any trim. You don't have to start at the end and snap and unclick till you get to that piece. You just rip and replace. Done. Couldn't be easier. And for like tenants, it's like you spray it with any cleaner and mop. Like you're done. Like, so it's just little things like that. And also just like adding extra things like, to my shock, code for hose spigots is 1.
Right.
We put at least 3. Like, what do you mean 1?
At least
One hose?
Yeah, front and back at least.
At least
Yeah.
front and back. We really view like every entryway. So like this last house I'm thinking of had 3 exterior doors. So there's a spigot on 3 sides. Because like, what do you mean? Just like they're going to want flowers or something, or I don't know, water fight? Like just have it. When I bought this house, there was 1. And you now have been to this house. It was over there. The driveway's over there.
It makes no sense.
So how was I going to clean the truck even? Just simple thing. I don't even think I was in the house a week. I called my plumber. I was like, I need you to come put in 2 new spigots. I need one by the back door and one by the garage. And you're going to love me because my crawl space is 8 feet tall. So no crawling in the crawl space. Just,
Ideal.
Yeah, it was seriously. I had gas lines put in and my plumber needed a 6-foot ladder to screw the metal gas pipes to the bottoms of my floor joists. He needed a 6-foot ladder. That's how tall my crawl space is.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
You
it's
could
amazing.
Frame out like an office down there.
100%. Yeah, if I like really wanted to spend some money and like put in a rat slab and insulate and all that, like all the money now goes to the next house though, so I'm not doing anything here.
That's right.
And the next house I'm doing slab on grade, no crawl, and no attic. So there will just be no moisture problems, no critter problems, and I'm going to have the world's biggest mechanical room, and it'll be so easy for everybody to maintain everything. And
So is that a build to live in thing or a build to rent thing?
no, that is like my personal forever home.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, which I know I'm young when I say those words, but I really love this area, and I know I want to be here for, at least until my parents die, which I really hope is at least another like 10 plus years.
Yeah.
And I've got a foot nerve ending disease, so I'm building a 1-level home, and I'm just trying to it's a very utilitarian home, and it looks like it. And I'll show you the plans after. It's like, is this a house or a warehouse? Like, it's a warehouse I'm gonna live in, but it's very efficient and easy to maintain. And after I put metal siding and standing seam metal roof, I won't have to do anything ever again. Like, it will outlast me because those materials will last longer than I will be alive.
Yep.
And I'm not going to have kids to leave it to. So it's good. Just one and done. And then the house we're sitting in, I want to rent out
Okay.
because it would basically pay for everything. And that's the plan as we sit. But we're still drawing right now. Right now, actually, we're done drawing. We're waiting for the engineer this Friday to size the roofing trusses and the LVLs that'll hold up the main beam. He's got to size all that, and then I can have all my subs give me some prices.
And start. So this is a near term project.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was in the 5-year plan, and then my pops was like, okay, we're ready to really start drawing now. We have some space in his company to help me get, to use his draftsman basically. And so then all of a sudden it's okay, we're really close to a done set plan that is good enough to get a building permit, which means it's good enough to send to subs, which means it's good enough to send to the money people. So now I was like, okay, why wait?
Yeah.
What's the benefit of waiting? I started thinking, I was like, there actually isn't a benefit of waiting. I own the land, it's done. Like I own that outright in cash. I dug the well. I paid for that in cash. I ran the power. I paid for that in cash. So like it's good to go. So now it's like, okay, are you just an idiot waiting for interest rates to go down? Because that's never going to happen. So what are we waiting for? And I couldn't think of a good reason. So now I'm like, shit. Instead of sitting on these done plans, I've shot them to all my subs. You know, I was like, foam guy, we're in spray foam the whole thing. Here's the plan. You know, so I've just shot it to everybody, and I was like, well, I might as well just get the real number, add $75,000 for emergency or something super awesome I didn't think of, and go get the loan. I might as well just do it. I mean, not to mention the land is like 11 acres. Most of it's woods.
Oh, man.
But the area that I want to build is already a clear, flat field that is mowed by somebody who wants the hay. So I literally just got to shave off 8 inches of grass, maybe truck in some really nice soil, and I'm ready to build.
That's awesome.
Like tomorrow. It's just a permitting thing and a money thing at this point. And yeah, it was also in the 5 to 10 year plan because I was hoping I'd make enough money to build it in cash. That's such a pipe dream. It's not even a pipe dream. It's just so impossible that I was like, okay, well, we're not waiting for that anymore. So let's just get a loan. And I know I can get a loan. Connor will find the guy to give me a loan.
Yeah, figure it out.
He'll figure it out. I know he will. And, you know, the quicker I get in that house, the quicker I rent this house out. And just doing some fuzzy math, like renting this for $2,000 to $2,500 a month easily pays for this mortgage, which is only $850, and then easily, or at least the majority of the monthly construction loan turned mortgage will be taken care of by the leftover. And then I just got to like make a little money till this mortgage is paid off in 12 years or whatever. So like, you know, not going to be driving around in a Lamborghini, but I could be living in my custom home for free in 10 years. And to me, that's better than driving around in a Lamborghini that has a, you know, 18% loan on it. So, you know, you said something earlier about being successful or not being successful. I think the bar for success is different.
Oh, absolutely.
Because like you know, like my brother, for example, his former boss, according to my brother, that guy's version of winning was zeros in the bank account, like just more zeros. And at 22, I couldn't have agreed more. Like, hell yeah, let's get zeros. Let's be able to buy whatever we want. Now at 32, I'm like, that's not super important. Like, money is an amazing commodity. It is a needed commodity in the society that we've built. But you don't do anything with money. You trade it for everything you need.
Right.
You don't actually use money. You trade it for the stuff you actually use. And that's a hard mindset for a lot of people, especially people who are less well off, to comprehend, because they're very focused on money. And not that you shouldn't be focused on it, but if it's your only priority, you're going to miss out on some stuff. In your case, it's family time. In my case, or in your case, it's kid time. In my case, it's other family. You know, my parents live in Durham. My brother lives in New Hill. So like we're all kind of close. We do a lot of traveling together, which is cool. And you know, there's just more important stuff. And I don't know when I figured it out, but I did. I'm glad I did. Yeah. I don't exactly remember, but it did click one day where I was like, this is like, who am I going to leave all this money to?
Yeah.
Right now, my will leaves it all to my brother. He makes more money than I could count. It's useless. You know, I was like, well, I don't have anybody to leave it to. So my parents will die before me. So you take it, put your kids through college or something.
There you go.
Yeah. He's got 3 little ones. So he's going to need to put them through school because they're all very smart. So they're all going to cure cancer or something, I'm sure. But, yeah, but I mean, so you have 5 separate companies, or is it 4?
I mean, if you include like the LLCs for properties, or that own properties, then it would be 5. But we've got 3 operating entities. So we've got 3 operating businesses.
Okay.
That we're connected to.
And your goal is to slowly bring up the people that can basically do all of your jobs, and you can just step back and watch the money come in?
I think very long term, yeah, but I think I get a lot of, I really love helping build a team. I love being a part of a team. I love seeing people thrive and be successful at whatever they're best at, and creating kind of a space for them to do that in. I love the creativity that goes into, figuring out a way to provide a better service or a better business, or how to make this business work, or just all that's, fun to me. So I mean, I don't have any sort of immediate needs, but I do want, part of my job too is making sure that if I'm going to build these things and have it be a great place for people to work and a great place for people to essentially depend on, then it also, if I want to really be wise in how I go about that, it also can't be fully dependent on me. If we've got, because if something happens to me, God forbid I get hit by a truck, right? All of a sudden, we cannot have 3 different businesses employing different people.
Just stop.
Yeah. That's super unkind to ask somebody to trust fate that much, right? And so we don't control enough of life to be able to do things like that. So, really, I definitely want them to get to that point, but not necessarily with the intention of just stepping out.
Yeah. Well, man, you got to expand into the Durham zone, because I feel like we should work together.
Yeah. Well, we definitely definitely open to it. I think in the next couple years, we're probably we're going to want put another branch office somewhere for the property management company for sure. And start growing geographically. We've got an office now, and we handle a lot of counties in the area, but having, I guess, more density, which would require more locations within that area. We're not looking to
We don't even
further.
need a Durham office. We could do it all like telemarketing, and I'll be your boots on the ground. Yeah,
there you go.
Don't worry about it. Yeah, you need me to go meet with somebody in Durham, just text me.
Get it done.
Yeah, super easy. Save the office space rent. Yeah, put it somewhere. Give it to Connor. He'll invest it better than we could do spending it on office rent. Yeah,
that's right.
I just feel like I should give him every cent I could find. Like I don't 100% do that right now, but I'm like opening an account with the guy.
Yep.
And I don't know, give him $15,000 or whatever. But I just feel like if I gave him $200,000, he'd call me in like 6 months and be like, "Did you want it to be 700? Because it's 750."
Right.
I'd be like, "What the hell? How'd you do it?"
Yeah.
And he'd be like, "I can't tell you that. It's proprietary technology."
Yeah. Yeah. He's super sharp. I really love people like Connor, because you'll go into a conversation with him and you'll be like, this guy's done pretty well. He's super sharp, really good at what he does. And then you walk away and go, that guy's younger than I am.
Dude, he's younger than me. I thought he was in his 40s. He came over here one Sunday at 6 a.m., I might add, to work out. Put me to shame. The dude's a beast.
Yep.
And to be fair, he is like bald, and like he's in the finance world.
Right.
So it's not, you don't think of a young man in finance being successful or balding, right? And I don't know, we were talking about something. We think we were making a protein shake. It was like as bro as you could get. And we're making a protein, and I was like, yeah, well, you're more successful at, 40, what are you, 47 or 48 or whatever? And he was like, I'm 31. And I'm like, I'm 32. You're younger than me? Get the fuck out of my house. I was like, just go. Like, no, I'm not. There's no way. There's no way. And yeah, he was like, yeah, my wife and I are super young. We were just at Disney. We were just in Vegas. Like, I was like, okay, I got a paradigm shift. Give me a moment. Yep. Like, I had to just what is happening? Yeah, yep. I couldn't believe it.
I love the challenge that is, though, to go, okay, I've got a lot to learn. I've got a lot to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Honestly, when he talks, I get pretty eyes glazed, just because it's not him, it's finance stuff. Like, he'll talk about, quick money, soft money, hard money, fast money, and then rates, and how he's going to like buy something with this money and then redo it and then pull money out of it. And then next thing you know, he'll own a house for free. And I'm just like, you lost me, but I could do the work for you. But like, you lost me. Like, I don't really know what you just said, but I like our little networking fake BNI group.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's trademarked.
Fake BNI?
Yeah.
I just trademarked it right here by the Orange Hammer. Done.
Yep.
Trademarked. Boom. Okay, so if anybody is in the other side of Raleigh or like the Franklin County zone and they need to recycle some metal,
Absolutely.
or they need to, or they're a wholesaler and they want to buy some property or sell some property, or they have a home that they are sick of managing the rental side.
Yep.
And they want to use you for one or all three of those. What's the easiest way for people to get in touch?
Yeah, I guess my email. I don't know if we can post it in show notes or how that works, but
Just say it.
So it's Cory, Cory at RaynorRealtyNC.com. It's RAYNOR. RealtyNC.com.
Nice.
That'd be the easiest way to get up with me.
I'll make sure to type it in the little Spotify description too, so that if somebody's doesn't have a pen or they're driving, they can just click on that real quick.
Yep. We're also, on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and any of the messages you stick there will find me somehow.
Nice.
So that's another way to.
Are they all
follow what we
going
do.
pretty much to you directly, or is there like an intermediary of a person?
Yeah, so I think we might have talked about this. I'm the last millennial to mess with social media at all. And then I was like, okay, we've got a lot of businesses and we have to have this in our businesses. So we're in the process. I'm like maybe 6-8 weeks into having social media. So
didn't I give you social media people? I texted you 2 people to call.
Yep. And so we're actually just vetted through about 4 or 5 different companies. And I think Wednesday next week we're going to sign with one of them. But
did you ever hit up Trayvon?
I don't think I did.
Oh, well.
I think at that point I had already had like 4 conversations.
You're
going.
I can't handle another one. I'm good.
That's 100% it. Yeah.
I'm not judging.
Yep.
Yeah. You asked me. I gave you the contact. What you do is on you.
That's it.
That's.
But, the content we're putting together is really just helping people who are interested in real estate, interested in investing, or wants to know more about investing in Raleigh, Durham area. It's lots of content just about those things. We're not posting a lot about our properties we have for sale or for rent or anything like that. It's really just for education's sake. And so the content very much says what I want it to say. It just looks terrible. So yeah, we're baby steps though.
That's easy. Yeah. You need an 18-year-old.
I know it.
Yeah.
I know it.
Yeah, that's it. Trayvon might even be my age, but he's just more tech with it. And I'm just like, cool. I would love to get to the point where I actually delete my Instagram app and you just do all of it.
Do the work.
And then you text me when somebody sends a message looking for work. And I'll be like, cool. I'll reply. But like I've noticed that it took me. I noticed 2 things when I hired a social media person. It took hiring a social media person for me to actually take enough and good pictures. I would just not take them because I wouldn't care.
Right.
Like, I did this job. Maybe I'd take one really crappy, crooked picture and text it to like my mom or my brother or my girlfriend or something like that. Never caring about the social media part. Now I'm like, oh, I pay this dude. I better give him a lot of content. He better have all the pictures, and here's all the podcasts, and here, do something cool.
Right.
And then I also realized that I'm looking at my apps less. And I think
that's a big thing.
I think that is, I can only talk about me personally, but it's needed. I need to look at them less.
Yep.
My opinion is that everybody, with the exception of my father, who doesn't look at them at all, everybody else needs to look at them less. But there was just a moment where I started scrolling through like pretty recently, and I was like, I've seen all of this. There's my ad he put up yesterday that I saw twice now, and it's like, what am I doing? Like, just put this down, just put it on the couch. And I was like, I need to be more conscious of just like, dude, stop. You're looking at the same thing.
It's so addictive and easy to get drawn into, and it seems like you go into a time warp, and it's like, oh, that was 30 minutes ago that I picked up this phone.
6 hours.
Oh my gosh, right? And as somebody who owns a business or wants to spend quality time, that 30 minutes could have been spent better. And so I've got
there's 100. Everything would have been better. Yeah.
So like literally, I've got a buddy of mine, and I hand him my phone and be like, he put parental controls on YouTube. I can't even access YouTube on my phone anymore. I was like, I don't want to know the password. Set up the parental control, block YouTube on my phone. Don't ever tell me, because, man, I'll go watch videos about who knows how something's made. I'll fall into a rabbit hole about how they make crayons and
you seem like the dude like me who watches those two dudes in the jungle who just carve pools out of the ground and build shelters. They're incredible.
100%.
Yeah. They're so addicting.
It's amazing.
4 a.m. I'm watching these dudes like, what? Did they just build a house with a chisel and some sticks? What? Where'd they get the blue paint? Oh my God, that's a plant. And an hour goes by. It's like, what the hell?
Yep.
The worst is when you watch them build a gym and you're like, they built a gym and I'm watching from my bed. Why am I not in the gym? I should at least be on the exercise bike staring at this,
right.
You know, like, yeah, no, it's bad. And I have also noticed that, it creates a strange, what's the term? Like echo chamber, where like you start to like the same things and click on the same things, and the algorithm is like, okay, well, he likes this, let's give him more of this. And then you start to only see those things. And I don't know, I can't speak for 7 billion other people, but it definitely, I feel like, is a big contribution factor to like the divisiveness of like, if it's not in my immediate echo chamber and aligning 100% with all of the stuff that I see, then it's a negative. And it's like, wait a minute, just because you don't agree doesn't mean you're a negative. I just been staring at this freaking echo chamber and not being challenged by anybody who has a slightly different opinion. You know, I think I was listening to a comedian on a podcast, of all people. He was interviewing The Rock, who was like my favorite wrestler as a kid. And they were saying something along the lines of basically that, and that, like, if you don't purposely reach out and get people who at least challenge you a little bit, then like you're just going to continue down that spiral. And then one of them made a joke about how, like, today you can't have a friend in the other party, like political party.
Right.
Where then they made a joke like, yeah, I had a friend who was a fan of George Bush. And I was like, you fucking idiot. And then we went and got food. But, like, you can't do that now.
Right.
Now it's like, oh, my God, you like the person I don't like? We can't even hang out. What are you, a Nazi? Like, wait a minute. I just want lower taxes. I'm not a Nazi. Wait a minute. Stop. You jumped a couple notches there. Like, you know, I'm a fiscal conservative or I'm a whatever. Like, that doesn't mean I'm a Nazi. Like, wait a minute. And it just became, but I don't know what the reason is, but I can definitely see that the social media, like, bubble you put yourself in is a huge factor, because you just keep hearing the things that you think are correct on repeat, and you should still believe in them and you should still think they're correct, but you got to at least be open to learning how somebody came to think the other way. Yeah. That should be the interesting part. Like, it doesn't mean you have to convert to whatever their thought is, but you should replace that, like, oh my God, we can't even, like, be in the same room, with like, hey, can you let me know how you came to that conclusion? Because if we could have a rational conversation about how you grew up and how you came to that opinion, I might not change mine, but I'd be more educated, and we could have a rational discussion about different upbringings that led us to this point or something. You know what I mean? But if you just keep locking yourself in that echo chamber, and then the worst part is nobody thinks it's really an echo chamber. You get on that and you're just like, this is just social media. It's everybody. It's all inclusive. It's like, no. You've curated this to, you know, interact with your endorphins or whatever the, you know, biological thing that it's doing. And it's not healthy. It can't be.
Yep. It removes the fact that we all have significantly more in common than we have different.
Yeah.
Right?
And the stuff that I've done it too, the stuff that I have wrote under comments, I would have never said to a person's face.
Right.
We're all guilty of it.
Yep.
And even worse, we've all received a comment where we're like, what did they just say? And if they were here, I would have punched him in the mouth.
That's right.
But for some reason, there's like the screen removes any possibility of danger. and you don't even know who you're talking to. It could be some 14-year-old in his basement because he's scared of his stepdad. Like it could, it could be anybody.
Yep.
It could be a 90-year-old grandma. Like you have no clue. It could be a Russian troll farm. Like it's no idea. And it's just completely, it's just not good. I guess your kids are probably too young for all this.
Oh, way too young. I mean, I'll send this to you later, but I was reading an article the other day about what the level of screen time and social media does to our brains as adults and how we engage with that and measuring like the growth of one side of the brain outpacing the growth of the other side of the brain and just things like that. And it's mapping behaviors that like not healthy, that's for sure. So, but definitely not letting my kids interact with that at all at any level.
I also recently learned that like, okay, social media being damned, but just the physical phone. I didn't know that even computer screens, TVs, also phones, like the LEDs, they are actually blinking so fast we can't perceive it.
Oh, wow.
So it's just like this rapid blinking instead of just like, it's now on, and then it's off. Like it's just like a million blinks a second or whatever. I think it's called refresh rate or something. I'm not that technical, but I do know, according to a nutritionist, that is actually messing with like the part of our brain that gets tired, just making our eyes tired, and then also screwing up our something called circadian rhythm, which is like how we sleep with the moon and are awake with the sun, but like we're being thrown off by these crazy LEDs that don't occur anywhere in nature. And it's like, obviously the social media part is terrible. We already discussed that, but just the phone in general, like you could be doing something creative or something really, really good. You could be playing chess or like having a conversation with your grandma, but just the phone itself is like really messing with our eyes and really adding excess strain to our brain that we should not have. So it's kind of all bad. Yeah.
Yep.
It's just all bad.
It is. Nothing's.
It's not going to stop me from watching TV before I fall asleep every single night.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Nope. It's just coming down to life choices around trade-offs, right?
Yeah, I fall asleep with it on sleep timer every single night. I can't stop. Yeah. I'm out in 5 seconds, but it's on for 30 more minutes every single night. Every single night. Can't help it. Yeah. Well, sweet, man. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you coming on. Oh, wow. We did a lot of time here. Okay. Hey, and as always, the Orange Hammer podcast is on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook. You're probably listening on Spotify. Give me a like, subscribe, a 5-star rating. Apparently helps a lot of other people find it, especially on Apple Podcasts and Amazon Podcasts and iHeartRadio. So do me a favor, pretty please. And if you want me to talk about something specific, you want to come on the podcast, or you just want to yell at me for doing a really terrible job, you can call me at 845-489-6057 or email me corb, at wsdg.com. Cory, man, I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Thanks, man. All right, bye, everybody.